Okay, we want the main purpose of the text. Let's read. Figure out the function of this text. In most building demolitions, the building materials are destroyed and sent to landfills. City officials in Portland, Oregon wanted to reduce this waste. The officials passed a new law requiring demolition companies to deconstruct some buildings instead. Deconstruction involves carefully taking buildings apart piece by piece. Okay, so this is about an alternative to destroying buildings, which creates garbage. Instead, they want to deconstruct them down, which seems like it's a more formatted, perhaps eco-friendly approach to essentially getting rid of a building. Damage to the materials is avoided so that they can be reused in new constructions. A 2019 study found that 27% of materials from deconstructions in Portland were able to be reused. The remaining materials were processed for recycling. So yes, it is eco-friendly, and they're saving certain things for reuse. So let's see if we find that answer in the options. A, to explain an effort made by the city of Portland to reduce demolition waste and some results of that effort. Okay, they do have a study that talks about the results. That looks pretty good. I'm just going to keep reading. To show that popular support for measures that reduce demolition waste. No, we don't know anything about popular measures have increased. That was not given in the text. No evidence for that. C, to argue that building deconstruction is not as effective as other measures. There's no comparison to other measures, and this is negative when the passage itself is positive. To discuss laws aimed to reduce demolition waste in Portland, compare them to similar. No, there's no comparison to other cities. That's not right. It is to explain the effort made by the city to reduce demolition, and it does show there were studies and results of that effort that were fairly positive. Okay, here we want the main purpose of the text. The following text is from Holly Goldberg Sloan's novel short. More than 2 years ago, my parents bought a piano for some people who are moving to Utah. Mom and Dad gave it to my brothers and me for Christmas. I had to act really happy because it was such a big present. But I pretty much hated the thing from the second it was carried into the hallway upstairs, which is right next to my bedroom. The piano, okay, so the noise probably annoyed her, and that's the reason for it. The piano glared at me. It was like a songbird in a cage. It wanted to be set free. Actually, it's not really the noise that bothered her in her bedroom. It's the fact that it called her and felt her like she had to or was forced to play it. So as a result, she hated the thing. Okay. So A, it explains why the narrator always wanted a piano. No, that is opposite. She didn't want it and didn't like it, apparently. B, it establishes how the narrator feels about the piano. Yeah, she hates it. It calls to her. It glares at her like a songbird in a cage. This is definitely a good answer. Let's just check C and D. It suggests that the narrator's brothers are talented. Says nothing about that. No evidence for the brothers' talent. It describes the event that led the narrator's parents to buy a piano. It does do that, but that is definitely not the purpose of the text. So that's not really answering the question. B, it establishes how the narrator feels about the piano. All this is about her feelings and what she thought of it. We've got main purpose of the text. Let's read the beginning. It's adapted from such and such, Mars Jean's Nightmare. Okay. The narrator and his wife have recently moved to the southern United States, and Julius is their carriage driver. Okay. Julius was very useful when we moved to our new residence. He had a thorough knowledge of the neighborhood, was familiar with the roads and their water courses, knew the qualities of the various soils and what they would produce, and where the best hunting and fishing were to be had. He was a marvelous hand in the management of horses and dogs. So this is indicating the importance and value of the driver to their new move. So let's see if we find the answer like that. A, to compare the narrator's reaction to a new home with his wife's reaction. No, false comparison. That's not right. To give an example of Julius's knowledge about soil. This is too narrow. He does have knowledge of soil. It mentioned that. Okay, but he also knew about the best fishing, hunting. He was magnificent with horses and dogs. This is just simply too narrow, too specific to be correct. Doesn't answer the question. The main purpose question. C, to show that the narrator and Julius often hunt and fish together. Well, we don't know that. I mean, maybe they did, but we're not quite sure of that. To explain different ways in which Julius was helpful. Yeah, it's simply about how important Julius was. Looking for the main purpose of the text, Jackie Orm's Torchy Brown and Dixie to Harlem was the first comic strip by a black woman to appear in a widely read newspaper. The strip tells the story of Torchy, a young woman who leaves Mississippi to become a performer in New York City. Torchy's story reflects the experiences of the Great Migration, when millions of black Americans left the South in search of opportunities in other parts of the United States. So this is introducing this first new comic strip, which was important for that very reason. So I think that's going to be more aligned to the function here. Torchy Brown thus shows how Orms used comics to comment humorously on issues affecting black Americans, which she continued to do throughout her career. So it's not only she was the first one to write comics, but about how she focused them on the black experience and used it as kind of a humorous way to present, really deep issues. So A, to show how Orm's Torchy Brown inspired other black women to write comics. We don't really see anything about inspiration. It's more about her. To illustrate how the subjects Orms addressed in her comic strips changed. No, we don't really get a sense of their change over the years. C, to give an example how Orms presented the experiences of black Americans in her comic strips. Yeah. It's showing how Orms used comic strips on issues affecting black Americans, and one story reflecting about the Great Migration. This is definitely a possible answer. Let's just check D. To claim that several characters in Torchy Brown were based on people that Orms knew. We don't know about knowing personally. It's to give an example of how Orms presented the experience of black Americans in her comic strips. That's the right answer. Looking for the function of the underlined sentence. So more focused purpose question here. Streams and rivers carry soil and rocks from one location to another, but there is another way for these geological materials to move. Scientists call this process aeolian transport. So they're defining something here. We're going to look for that as a purpose. In aeolian transport, winds move small particles, so it's defining an alternative approach to rocks moving within rivers. So A, I think I can see that right here. I don't need to read further. A, it presents Melissa Diaz's remarks about difficulties that, no, it's not about the difficulties. Certainly not the underlined portion. B, it introduces a scientific term that is used in the discussion that follows. Yes, it's defining or introducing a term. I think this is going to be it. Let's just check C and D. It emphasizes the surprising nature of the findings. No, this is not really about surprising, right? It's defining. It explains the difference between two kinds of, no, it's not explaining. It's simply defining. It's introducing a scientific term. B is the correct answer.